How's it, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I do apologize for this video being so late, but I had to cram as much observations into this video as possible to actually drive my point home. For this video, I'm just going to look at some of the objections which globe deniers have about the shape of the earth and some of the excuses that they have come up with and stuck to, no matter what evidence is presented to them. For this one, fluffs have a myriad of excuses to not accept any photographic evidence. It's not real, it's fake, it's CGI, or it's a composite. It's not real and it's fake may sound like the same excuse, but I don't think so. It's not real, it's almost like we made it up. And it's fake means that we've taken something that's real out there and then distorted it into something that we want to project. And clearly, fluffs don't understand a computer-generated image. It's not something we conjured up from thin air. We've got all this equipment looking out into space and collecting data. And when they have enough data, that data is translated into an image we can understand. That is not easy work. And I know that scientists don't really know how to communicate what they are doing to us laymen, and they don't use the right words. With what Rob Simmons said, it's photoshopped, but it has to be, it's not what fluffs think. A composite is a very, very special kind of photograph, especially with how NASA does it, for example. I know fluffs hate NASA, but it's not NASA's fault that they've got this absolutely massive planet with this tiny equipment, and the only way we can do it is to take thousands and thousands and thousands of photos and then put them together like a puzzle so us lay people can get a look at what the globe looks like from space. And fluffs ask, why are the photos different all the time? Well, not only are the equipment different by different companies, the different people who are operating their stuff in space, they are using different equipment from the other companies. That's one. Two, the size of the Earth is incredible. Plus minus 40,000 kilometers around. And the Earth is in motion. If you've got a geostationary camera, then that camera is going to follow the Earth with the Earth's rotation, and you will get consistent pictures. But if you've got a camera out there and the camera is stationary with a rotating frame of reference, then obviously the photo is going to look different every time. Another thing. Why don't we feel the Earth move? And look, it's a legit enough question. We say that the Earth is in motion, but we as creatures on the Earth, we don't feel it. How come? I know that fluffs are going to hate what I'm about to say, but the Earth was in motion before any creature appeared on the Earth. And not appeared that God made it, no, when the creatures were evolving on the Earth. Because the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. And the Earth was already in motion before it was an actual planet. Because that's how bodies, planets are formed. Stars, galaxies, they are formed with that swirling motion. And depending on how much matter is gathered into that object will determine what the object will eventually be. So the earth was already in motion, and when the creatures evolved on the earth, we were already on a moving object. So we didn't have to adjust ourselves because the earth was already in motion even before we got here. Here, I just wanted to give Fluffs some perspective, and not the kind of perspective where two parallel lines converge in the distance. I wanted to give you a sense of scale and the size of the earth and show you that you don't know the difference in the meanings of words. For example, rotating versus spinning. For example, here in our solar system, Venus rotates at just about 6 kilometers per hour. But we have observed the fastest rotating star. They've named it VFTS 102, and it is spinning faster than our sun. And then just look at pulsars or magnetars and find out how fast they are spinning and why we say that the earth is rotating. And compared to some objects that the astronomers have observed out there in the universe, the earth is traveling basically at snail's pace at its pathetic 30 kilometers per second or 108,000 kilometers per hour. Astronomers have observed a star called S5-HVS1, which is traveling at a staggering 6 million kilometers per hour. You know, I've been filming sunsets for more than 2 years now, and every single afternoon, the sun ends up in our western skies. Sure, there is that deviation between west-southwest and west-northwest, which gives us our solstices, but the sun always ends up in the western skies in the afternoon, and by some apparent miracle, the sun ends up coming up from below the horizon on the eastern skies. And Fluffs don't explain that, because according to Fluffs, the sun does not set. How is the sun ending up going down below the one horizon and coming up from below to above the opposite horizon? What mechanism is making the sun do that if the earth is stationary? And going with that point, because, okay, you say the sun doesn't set, but we see the sun go down in the west below the horizon and come back above the eastern horizon. So that is indisputable. So that means in your model, the sun is orbiting the earth, but not the way you say. So conservation of momentum is a thing. What stops the sun at the solstices in either direction and makes the sun go back in the opposite direction? In your model, the sun should carry on in that motion, and then sunrise and sunset should flip every however long it would take the sun to do this. So every couple of years, where the sun rises and where the sun sets should change. So even within yourselves, there's no consistency. And then we've got the fluffs who don't understand glare. The only reason we see the glare of the sun is because we have an atmosphere, and the sun's light has to travel through the atmosphere to reach our eyes. Our eyes looking through this massive, almost 100-kilometer thick ocean of air gives us that glare. But that problem is so easily solvable. All you need is a solar filter. If I can do it, so can you, and you will see that the true angular size of the sun is just about a half a degree. One of the most amazing things that this generation has inherited from the previous generations is the concept of mathematics. And mathematics have been able to give us so many things which makes our lives easier, nicer, more comfortable. It's maths that was able to give us the understanding to translate our thoughts into tangible objects. And the most famous one for me would be a car. How do you make the vehicle go fast? They did the maths to see what is needed, and then they translated that into something tangible and saw that when they built it to those specifications, the car went as they wanted. And that is the awesome thing about maths. It helps us to make the calculations and then go out into the real world and see if our calculations are correct. And these days, more often than not, our calculations are showing to be more and more correct. And the scientific method now is so refined that it will be really difficult for there to be hoaxes or, lies and propaganda about the discoveries that are being made, because there are so many different people working differently with the same formulas, coming up with same answers, but executing it differently and getting the same results. For example, the USA was on the moon. Now China is on the moon, probably using the same maths and techniques, just a different design of rockets. But maths on its own means nothing unless we translate it into something in the real world. You just writing down formula after formula, calculation after calculation, does not materialize anything in the physical world. And one of the biggest lies that fluffs tell themselves is that the positions of the stars don't change. And that really is not a good lie to tell yourself, because I have been observing Orion and its accompanying stars, including Sirius and Canopus. And it's just in May, I was filming Orion setting in the west. And this morning, I took photos of Orion already risen in the east. So 2 months later, indeed, the positions of the stars do change. And I understand why fluffs don't understand why the positions of the stars actually change. And that is because they emphatically deny the motion of the earth. It's the motion of the earth which causes us to see the stars at different positions. And if you don't take my word for it, that is fine. But you will find that every day the star's position shifts by 4 minutes from the day before. And I don't mean to be crass, but for God's sake, science and the scientific method is not a religion, and it is not in search of God, so to say. There are certain Christians who set out to prove God by studying the natural world, and they ended up finding out that what it states in the Bible and other religious texts is not what is evident in the natural world. So some kept their belief in God, but they know the truth about the shape of the earth, the age of the earth, and the motion of the earth. And these are, observable, repeatable observations which show us that what the religious texts say about all these things, they are wrong. And even though you can retain a belief in God, you don't have to deny the science in order to believe in God. The one is not mutually exclusive with the other. And this is my personal opinion from my own experience, and it's that knowledge does not come from any God. I was born into Hinduism, and I was a Hindu for more than 20 years. And I gave up that and went into Christianity and was a Christian for about 20 years. So for 40 years of my life, I was in religions and I was earnestly seeking God. But I definitely know one thing. In all that time, none of this knowledge that I learned in the last 3 years was in my mind or handed to me from a God thinking that I need to know this stuff on an in-depth basis. Knowledge does not come from God. It comes from studying and researching and observing the world around us. That's how we obtain knowledge. If knowledge was handed down from a God, why did it take people so long to realize the actual shape and motion of the earth? And even after the first calculation was done, by the time the Bible was written, we already knew the shape of the earth, and yet the Bible does say that the earth hangs on nothing, that it is a circle, and that it has pillars and foundations. These things are untrue and does not correlate with what we see in reality. And once again, I must take this opportunity to say thank you to flat earthers, globe-denying fluffs, who for years and years and years have been screaming at us to do our own research. And I am grateful that I took them up on that offer, and I have done my own research, and I am at the point where I can state with confidence that fluffs are either wrong or they just willfully misunderstand the information presented to them. So guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my showcase of more than a year and a half's worth of observations there in the West. If you would like to discuss any of these or any of the other observations I've made, please head on over to the Discord channel I've created, especially for this discussion. Especially if you're a fluff and want to understand what I've learned, please, let's discuss my observations. So guys, please stay safe and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.